Welcome to Getting Defensive Weekend Primer presented by Gridiron Ratings. I am your host, JJ Wenner, and welcome to part 6 of our free agency frenzy. Tonight, we talk about the top signings on the defensive side of the ball, why they matter to your teams. With me tonight is my friend and Gridiron Ratings senior IDP analyst. You can find him on Twitter at the IDP Hipster, Gary Van Dyke. How are you doing, Gary?
I'm doing good, other than trying to sort out this Bobby Wagner to the Ram news and the whole Ernest Jones thing. Yeah, it's got me down a little bit, I gotta admit. So
well, let's introduce Brandon, and then we are going to talk about that a little bit. So, also with us tonight, the author of the Key and Diagnose series on Gridiron Ratings. You can find him on Twitter at bjack83. Brandon Jackson, how are you doing, sir?
Pretty good, JJ. How are you?
Oh, always better when I see your two smiling faces. But before we jump into tonight's topics, make sure you like and subscribe below to get all of our most recent content. And remember, your path to the title starts with Gridiron Ratings. Now let's jump to the news. Before we get to Bobby Wagner, Bruce Arians has retired as the head coach of the Tampa Bay Buccaneers. I put retired in quotation marks. Questionable, and has joined the front office. My man Todd Bowles has been named the new head coach. Gary, any thoughts?
I have no objections to it. Apparently, he deserved it, and they made the call. So you got to trust the organization. It's not like they've been doing things wrong. So.
True. Brandon, where are you with the Bruce Arians, Todd Bowles? Do you think it's going to affect the team?
I don't think it's going to have that much of an effect, especially when you have a veteran team led by Tom Brady. Todd Bowles, he has extensive coaching experience. He's been a head coach with the Miami Dolphins before, and he's been a defensive coordinator for several years. I think that team is going to be fine. I know Bruce Arians, he had some health issues in the past, so it's probably best that he moves to a front office position. But I think they should be fine. Bowles, he's a defensive head coach, and they've lost some players on defense, but they've been like a top 10 defense, since he's been there. So I think the team, there won't be much of a drop off.
Yeah, I'm a fan of Todd Bowles personally. He was the head coach of. You were close. He was the head coach of the New York Jets. He did. I mean, listen, coaching in New York is not easy for anybody, especially somebody who seemingly as mild-mannered as Todd Bowles is. He's a very humble person. He's very quiet. He's not a yeller. No. And I think as a leader, like that just didn't go across well in New York. They wanted more passion out of him. But I loved him. The players loved him. They played hard for him. He's a great coach. I am so happy to see him getting another chance. This is a really good opportunity for one of the good guys, in my opinion, in the NFL. Speaking of good guys in the NFL, Bobby Wagner, 5 years, $50 million. But most importantly, $1 million tears from Gary. Gary, I'm going to let you wax rhapsodical about the loss of your beloved Mr. Jones. Mr. Jones and me.
I suppose you could say, because it's been going on for a few days now, almost a week, I think, since he's visited him. I kind of was prepared. I was hoping that Baltimore would be the ones to swoop in and get the job done, but I'm thinking about it since this news broke earlier today. I'm disappointed. I could rant on about why Bobby Wagner should have never been out there. But I mean, the Rams are building a juggernaut, and it's going to be time to reevaluate what Ernest Jones is going to be, or his potential could be. Certainly his ceiling has been chopped off. So, we can re-examine. We've got a lot of people out there that's invested in Jones. just based off of, what we've said here on getting defensive. So we've planted our flag in them, and now it's kind of the time to see who could have knew that all this would play out this way. I mean, there's no rhyme or reason. This happens. I hate when it happens, or injuries to a guy. I had Drew Tranquil a year or so ago. The second play of the first week of the game against the Bengals. I'm watching the game. He breaks his lower leg or his ankle, and out he goes. But that's just one of many. It happens. But I think we're going to spend this time the next few days trying to regroup, get my foot out of my ass, because I'm just kind of grieving at the moment. We're going to have to look at this contract when it comes out. We was looking before we got on here. We don't see the details when there might be an out on this. There could potentially be an out within a couple of years. So that'll help us gauge a little bit more. Hopefully we'll have those details by next Tuesday's pod, and we'll be able to evaluate a little bit. There's still probably some upside. He is the second best player at inside linebacker on that team now. There's no doubts about that. So we'll look at it, try to smile through it. I'm sure we'll be all right.
Well, I want you to know, Gary, Brandon, me, the whole crew at Gridiron Ratings is here for you.
Yes.
If you need us to take you out for a boys' day out, we can go to the spa, get our hair done.
I got a few comments from you guys, but this is hilarious because Jeff, which is Gridiron Ratings co-founder or founder, called me. He called me directly. Hadn't said anything in the whole time, and just first thing he asked me is, "You all right?" Yeah, I'm all right. I'm just trying to maintain.
It's okay. You can do it.
We're a family show, so if I really spoke my mind, that would be a problem. So we're just going to let it cool off a little bit.
All right. We will let you cool your jets while we jump into the notable free agent signings. First on the list, edge Za'Darius Smith signed a 3-year, $42 million contract with the Minnesota Vikings. Now, Smith has spent the past 3 seasons with Green Bay, and although he posted 26 sacks in his first 2 years, 2021 was a wash due to injury. Brandon, what are your expectations for Za'Darius Smith as he joins the Vikings?
Well, I think he's going to be a very integral part of the Vikings' revived defense. The Vikings, they had a very poor year defensively last season. They were amongst the worst against the pass. Ironically, they were second in sacks, even though they were missing Danielle Hunter. But bringing in Za'Darius Smith and Danielle Hunter being healthy again next season, I think that's gonna help the Vikings. And that duel, I think they're going to feed off each other because both are very good pass rushers. I think Za'Darius Smith, he's going to be like a high-end DL2, possible DL1 upside next to Danielle Hunter. He's had double-digit sacks in 2019 and in 2020. So, the talent is there. I am concerned, with the injury last year, that back injury, lingered the whole season. The offseason, he had the back surgery, and, the coaches, they were kind of coy about it. So, he's going to be back soon. He's going to be back soon. He played week 1, re-injured it, and he was out basically the whole season. He had to get another back surgery. I was looking at his snap counts. He only played I think 30% of the snaps in the playoff game against the 49ers. He still was productive. He got a sack on Jimmy Garoppolo. So, he's obviously talented. His issue is just I'm just concerned about the injury. We know Danielle Hunter, he's struggled with injuries too. But if that duel can stay healthy, the Vikings are going to be among the top leaders in sacks next year.
Yeah, and we talked about last week, Gary Harrison Phillips, the big man, coming to the middle to help solidify that next to Dalvin Tomlinson. Armon Watts, who had stepped in last year and had some good weeks as a DT. Do you see Minnesota's defense completely rebounding to where they were as like a top 10 defense?
I mean, they certainly have made a couple of interesting moves, bringing in Jordan Hicks, and then at the put in there next to Kendricks, and at the same time, I mean, these are two proven pass rushers that they're going to use in this new 3-4 base scheme. But they're gonna spend a lot of time in nickel just like everybody else. So it really is going to matter. What's interesting is, to me, if Darius was coming in to put his hand in the dirt as a straight out defensive end, I would, question that a little bit. I mean, he is only 30, but at the same time, it's not just nice to see him actually as that edge rusher standing up, getting in there more. And I agree, him and Hunter are just a duo of guys that, I mean, it would be hard to reach for either one of them in the top 5. You know what I mean? Something like that's ridiculous, but certainly towards the lower first tier of edge rushers, defensive line play. So you got to like it.
Just have to hope for the health. Let's jump over to my beloved team. Cornerback DJ Reed signed a 3-year, $33 million contract with the New York Jets. Now, Robert Saleh is able to shore up that defensive backfield with a young star from Seattle. Gary, what are you expecting out of Reed this year? Now, I know this is generally Tripp's territory.
Right.
But
Mr.
Do you have any thoughts on the corner?
Yeah, I got a little bit of thoughts. I mean, there's one way to evaluate it, and that's looking at the team in front of them, the defensive unit in front of them. I think he's going to probably be pretty much exactly where he was last year, which was a top 10 on average cornerback. When he did score at the end of the season, he was probably likely in a top 20 of overall production among cornerbacks if you're using that position. One reason we ought to think that he'll be just as busy is breaking down the defensive line for the Jets. I feel bad. I feel like I'm kicking a horse, dead horse on this, but until they improve that pass rush. Now, hopefully Lawson's still got something and he can come back from his injury and get the job done. But they don't have that much appealing otherwise. And they just haven't had a really good track record for quite some time of creating the pass rush. They almost not putting an attempt into it, it seems. I'm not really sure what's going on. But I think
there's been plenty of attempts, my friend.
Yeah.
All swings and misses.
Yeah. Well, they need to swing higher. They really should. This was a good opportunity. They could have tried to woo some of these savvy veterans. We've talked about it before. We're seeing a lot more interior defensive linemen and edge rushers get on up in age and still perform at a high rate. And rotations in their scheme or whatever has led to them just really being able to maintain being a beast. So, and they qualify. So that's why I kind of slot Smith up there close to the Von Miller and Chancellor Jones if I'm looking at the edge rushers.
All right. Brandon, any thoughts on Mr. Reed?
Oh.
Yeah, I mean, I agree with Gary that the Jets, they need to improve their front seven, their defensive line. And I think with them, addressing the secondary in free agency, with signing DJ Reed and the safety from Tampa Bay,
Jordan Whitehead.
Jordan Whitehead. I believe that they're going to attack that position in the draft. Now, concerning DJ Reed, he performed at a very high level last year in Seattle. He was like a top 10 cornerback by the metrics. I'm actually surprised that the Seahawks didn't re-sign him. I know Pete Carroll talked glowingly about him all season long. He really improved towards the second half of the season. He was very steady. he had like I believe like the number one completion percentage for cornerbacks. He only allowed like 47% completion percentage and 67% quarterback rating. So he's a very good player. With him moving to the Jets, he's probably going to be about the same level of production. Seattle didn't have a great defense. They were on the field a lot. The Jets, they have a lot to do to improve their defense as well. So he's probably going to be on the field a lot too. Now, if he can keep up his level of production, that'll be good for the Jets. I know last year was a contract year, so it was motivation to perform, and he did perform at a very, very good level. So I like the signing for the Jets. He's a very good cornerback. That's a good signing for the Jets. He's probably going to be in the DB1 range, like Gary said.
Yeah, this is a definite better football move than it really matters for IDP, unless you're in a corner required league, obviously. And even if he's ranked as a top 10 corner, you should not be drafting him, because you shouldn't be drafting a top 10 corner, because you shouldn't be drafting corners. But that being said, good signing. And
I'm excited for Jordan Whitehead. I think he is going to be one busy dude. I think he's really, each week each day they don't do anything more, and probably going to rely on this draft. And I mean, we're down to the second level on a lot of tiers of the IDP side of the ball, the defensive side of the ball, for them to be signing any free agents. So I'm excited. Mosley's going to have another good year. Quincy Williams, if he somehow enters the season as a starter,
there is no way.
Right?
There is no way in HE double hockey sticks.
I was reviewing the other day on my own. I was reviewing these guys that have interesting scenarios on the inside linebacker position, and it's very interesting that they haven't done anything. Are they planning on drafting high? Are they just going to try to use those two converted safeties? I think they both got to see some play. I don't know. I guess you have nothing to lose.
No, I trust Saleh and I trust Douglas right now. So
yeah,
I haven't trusted that, like, our head coach and GM together in a long, long time. Wow, I'm in the middle of a harsh thunderstorm here, so I hope I don't drop out. Let's move on to Edge. Dorance Armstrong re-signed with Dallas, 2-year, $12 million contract. Now, he had a pretty solid 2021 campaign. He posted 5 sacks, 37 combined tackles on about 500 snaps. Now, Brandon, with Randy Gregory departing, are we expecting Dorance Armstrong to take that next step and fill that Gregory role?
I believe so. He's a young player, 25 years old. He had a somewhat of a breakout year last year. With his 5 sacks and 36 tackles. He actually provides more in the tackle department than Randy Gregory does. So I'm intrigued by Armstrong this year. He's going to be in that rotational role because that's what Dallas does. They have the rotation going on. Parsons, Lawrence, it'll be Armstrong, and they signed Dante Fowler, who should make the team. He was signed by used to play for the Falcons. Dan Quinn used to play for Dan Quinn. Mm-hmm. So we're assuming that Fowler's gonna be in the mix there. He played 51% of the snaps last season. That's probably where more or less where he's gonna be. But I was very impressed with him last season. His best game of the season happened to come against Washington football team, where he had 6 tackles and he ran a fumble recovery back for a touchdown. He looked good. He's a very young and ascending player. I'm expecting him to fit in that DL2 range.
Do you agree, Gary? DL2 range for the man?
Oh yeah, definitely. And I mean, that could be probably, I want to say floor. I think his ceiling may be a little higher if he can just get the majority of the snaps. I do think he's not going to light up and probably pull off double-digit sacks. I don't think so. I mean, but he could get upwards close to that. I think it's just going to be by rotation, and I think that as good as he is, as good as he looks, the only thing that happened when Randy Gregory didn't re-sign was kind of lock Parsons back into that edge rusher role that he had last year. I think that they could have possibly gotten away with that and put him more in the inside if it hadn't been for Gregory moving on. So at this point, I do think that locks him in. But as far as Armstrong, yeah, I mean, I like to think that he'll have weeks that he'll have, upper DL1 production. But we're probably looking at a solid 4 average of a DL2.
All right, very good. Well, gentlemen, we have 3 players left, and it just so happens that they're all recent signings by the formidable Houston Texans. And they all play linebackers. So let's go through these 3 gentlemen, figure out who we can trust, if we can trust any of them. First up is Christian Kirksey. Now, he re-signed with a 2-year, $10 million contract. He was considered a bit of a disappointment last year by managers expecting a resurgence, though he posted his best season since his peak in Cleveland back in 2016 and 17. Kirksey, he returns to the moribund Texans franchise. Now, is this the year that he finally stays healthy and posts triple digits tackles again, Brandon?
I'm not sure. I mean, this is a player that struggled to stay healthy, basically his whole season. You're looking at last year, I believe he played 13 games and had like 12 starts. He couldn't play a full season. But if he does play the whole season, then he'll definitely be in that upper LB2 range. He's always been a very productive tackler, efficient tackler. So I like Kirksey as an LB2.
Gary, you on board with that, or do you think you might sneak up into the LB1 range?
I don't. I guess at that point now, I don't care. He's a complete avoid for me. He really. I don't think it's worth the risk of managing what he might potentially bring when there's probably plenty of other guys that I could have with less risk to have a backup for. Take the risk of, he's not that good on paper. So, I mean, realistically, we got to believe in him as long as Houston does. But, I mean, he's replaceable, and we're going to talk about a couple of these other guys here that, could push him for snaps. If anybody takes a hit, we'll see here.
All right. Well, the next 2 players join the triple named contingent at linebacker. Jalen Reeves-Maybin signed a 2-year, $7.5 million contract with the Texans. Only 2 years. It's a cheap deal. Are we expecting, Gary, any IDP relevance out of Jalen Reeves-Maybin?
I actually like the signing a little bit. I like the opportunity for Maybin to come in there. I'm not sure why the Lions didn't. I mean, he was one of the better guys that the Lions had last year on the field, and they've actually chose to bring in they just basically replace him with the same quality. Hopefully Maybin's going to have a chance to actually compete for some playing time here. There's one thing that we do know coming off talking about Kirksey is the fact that he'll be missing games. So that's going to open an opportunity for somebody. And I mean, right now on paper, Reeves-Maybin looks like the guy. This team does not put a lot of money into their linebacker core. They haven't for some time. I think they got dumped that last big contract of McKinney, and they haven't looked back. So it's just a matter of default. I like him. I like him to be able to get a chance to earn some playing time. But he's probably out of these 3 that we're getting ready to talk about, he's probably the only one that if I had a deep format with a deep bench, then sure, I'd probably add Reeves-Maybin as a flyer. But I'm not paying for Kirksey at his probable ADP that I'm going to be seeing.
Where are you at, Brandon? Are you reaching for Reeves in the later rounds, or is he a hard pass for you?
Yeah, I'm passing on Reeves-Maybin. He's mostly been a special teams player in Detroit. Just looking at last year, which was he had a career high in snap percentage. He only played like 60% of the snaps, so he's looking like he's basically part-time player, and special teams player, and I expect that to continue with the Texans. Texans defense, they need some foundational talent, so I expect them to attack some of these weaknesses, especially on defense in the draft. So really, these linebackers, three linebackers, are not safe to me. They're just like stop gap options. That's where they were signed to these short term deals. I believe that it's going to be Hill and Kirksey as the three down linebackers next season.
All right. Well, we'll see what happens. I mean, to say that defense needs some help. Ooh. I mean, just looking at that roster, that is an ugly roster. However, what does make it beautiful is their abundance, along with Jalen Reeves-Maybin, the existing Kevin Pierre-Louis, KPL, and now we add another triple namer, Kamu Grugier-Hill. Gotta love this. 1 year, $4 million. This can't be more though than a backup deal, right? Go ahead, Gary.
No, it's funny that you mentioned it because I was actually thinking about writing about Derek Barnes. I talked to Brandon the other day about him a little bit, but in the process, I was going through and I ended up looking on this whole situation with his contracts. And even though it's the cheapest, both Kirksey and Reeves-Maybin are going to be making more. And it's such a friendly, there's something about Houston Texans, that organization, and loving this kid, giving Grugier-Hill the opportunity. And I mean, it's been a roller coaster ride with this kid. He's got some talent. He flashes. Is he really good on the field? It's probably why he only got $4 million. I mean, that's a super friendly 1 year deal for them. So, he's taking an advantage. Again, none of these guys are above average graded players anymore at all. They've had their spotlights. They're productive by default when they're in there. That's kind of why I can't walk away from the signing of Reeves-Maybin. And then at the same time, you was mentioning Pierre-Louis was actually, I think he got hurt last year, but he had been making a decent, impression on him at the time. So I don't know, Brandon. What are you thinking about this?
I think Grugier-Hill, he led the linebackers in snaps last season. That's where I see him fitting in again. Now he's kind of bounced around, so I agree. He's not, a great linebacker. He's bounced around Philadelphia, Miami, didn't want him, and now he lashed down with the Texans. But the encouraging thing is that he came in and he took the job of Zach Cunningham. Zach Cunningham was having a terrible season. He had like a 20% missed tackle rate, and the Texans just straight up released him. And I think they had just signed him in the offseason to a long-term deal. And, Hill came in and, solidified that spot. So I think that's in the team's in the back of their head that, hey, we got the stable veteran right now. Like I said, they're probably going to attack the position in the draft. They have 2 first-round picks, so they have the luxury of, adding talent to that linebacker room. So he's probably going to be there, be the starter for a year, and help groom a rookie in there. I think he's the most likely to stay healthy because he played 14 games last season. He started all 14 games, so I think he's going to be their lead linebacker again. He's going to be in the LB2 range.
I don't know how to ask this question, but looking at this roster, this defensive roster, I don't see any who is a starter on this team who you think could start for the Rams?
Yeah.
I'm not saying the Rams are the best defense in the league,
No.
but as a defense who's a solid defense, they performed well. Is there any defensive player
I think there's
on this team who you think could go to the Rams and get a starting job?
maybe that I think he's a defensive end or an outside linebacker, Jake Martin, or something like that.
He's gone.
Oh,
Jake
Sorry.
Martin's on the Jets. He's a depth signing.
well, I kind of answered those questions, I suppose. I mean, is Reed gone too?
Kansas City.
Huh. I don't know.
I mean, I'm looking at, and I know our lads doesn't always have like the most up to date who's the starters, but you're looking at
maybe they need to watch it.
Okoronkwo, Lopez, Malik Collins, Jonathan Greenard, Reeves-Maybin, Kirksey, Grugier-Hill, King, Eric Murray, Terrence Brooks, Lonnie Johnson, Tavier Thomas. I mean, these are names that a lot of them I don't even recognize, and I play in a ton of deep IDP leagues.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, that's
so
I don't know. It makes no sense. I mean, maybe they're waiting for the USFL to start so they can. I don't know. Get some guys in for some tryouts or something.
I'm just baffled. I'm baffled at, even speaking of from a bad franchise, like I'm a Jets fan.
Right.
I know bad franchises.
At least look like you're trying.
But usually there's at least one or two players on the Jets like this, CJ Mosley, Quinnen Williams. Even though they sucked last year, those two guys could probably start for most teams.
Yeah.
But I don't know. It's hard to find rosters that are as devoid of talent as the Houston Texans.
Sam, you're saying it politely. They suck. They stink.
I guess.
Yeah.
Well,
you get defensive about.
Well, I got something to say. I mean, remember, Bill O'Brien had put him in a bad spot. Some bad trades and bad financial decisions. They lost a lot of draft picks, so that has a lot to do with their lack of talent. I think the new GM is trying to build his team through the draft. So I think that might be the mentality.
Well, it's too bad it's just not a little bit more of a solid situation with these guys because, I mean, the whole team is in, I don't know, super flux, whatever this is called. So normally you would think there would be a lot of opportunity for IDP production on this, but it's just throwing in all the risks, the buy stories, the what could be. We don't have a lock. There's no locks yet. So, it's too bad.
Yeah, they got a lot of dead cap with Deshaun Watson and Zach Cunningham. So I think they're trying to make smart and shrewd decisions. They're probably going to, add some players to the draft. I think that's what they're thinking.
Well, they better because they don't have a lot.
Yeah.
They do not have a lot of players. Earlier, I was preparing for my Dirty O pod, Gary. And I was just looking at like the running back room there, and I was just like, "Oh wow, Rex Burkhead and Dare Ogunbowale."
Yeah, they're gonna draft running backs too,
right? And defense.
Yeah, right.
Might look for a couple wide receivers,
Yeah.
maybe a tight end, a few offensive linemen.
Yeah. They're just all sitting back drinking beer, going, "This a couple more years."
Yeah, Gary, I had a tough decision on this IDP incentive with the keepers. I was left with a garbage roster, and I think I was had to choose.
You picked it.
I had to choose between
Two garbage rosters.
Yeah, Zach Cunningham and Tampa Bay Buccaneers linebacker. He's the
Seven White or Levante David.
Levante David.
Yeah.
I mean, I chose David because it's just I just didn't feel comfortable with Cunningham the season that he had last season, and just analyzing the snap counts. Even when he got to Tennessee, they were just up and down, up and down.
Yeah, and it was all kind of the same case scenario where it was all of a sudden Tennessee loved Cunningham like they loved Grugier-Hill for whatever reasons. I mean, we've known for quite some time Zach Cunningham was kind of showing that leaning on that production by default type, and not really quite sure what happened with the whole fallout, but it is.
Well, it was
is.
more of a, if I remember correctly, and obviously correct me if I'm wrong, but they said David Culley was the coach. I think he came out and said it was more of a personality, fit, work ethic, team chemistry issue than it was anything else, that he just was not a good locker room guy.
Well, we got some kind of a scenario up here in Detroit right now. I mean, that's what they tried to do with this new organization, is go in there and clean house from getting the right attitude in and out and such. And it's made for an interesting situation, which at some point we'll talk about.
Well, how do you feel about it? Do you feel like they have cleaned out that locker room? Are you happy with the direction they're going?
I mean, from an IDP point, there's one problem with Derek Barnes for me, and that is the ceiling of a breakout that he could have this year. So I like Chris Board. I like who they brought in. Who was the other guy? Oh, they re-signed Josh Woods. I think that was a great
Jared
idea.
Davis.
He did really well. Yeah, they brought in Jared Davis. They're expecting that to be, if he'll be lucky to make the roster kind of move. I think I was reading about, but either way, I don't even want to relive Jared Davis. So I'd rather lose one like I did with Jared Davis last year than I would with the Ernest Jones call this year. But we're not going to dwell on that, are we?
No, we're not.
Yeah. So what were we even talking about?
Just Detroit. I was talking to you about how do you feel about the roster and changing over the locker room.
I think we're going to see the same of what we've seen last year. There's not going to be a highly productive tier 1 dude come out of this. The way that they rotate, I think Derek Barnes is going to get a lot of playing time that he got last year, but I don't think he's going to quite get the opportunity to break out completely. I think that they'll have some kind of rotation. They re-signed Alec Alazone, and even though he's not exactly a perfect fit, and you can just see he's always one step behind and actually caught out of position some too. But it doesn't look like they're veering away from him right now. I don't know if they're going to do anything in this draft coming up, but it's just another one of those cases. You have teams that just do not spend. If you could see the little amount of money that is actually spent on the inside linebacker position, it's outrageous across the whole league versus what they pay everybody else on average. I mean, defensive lines is the mainstay. You got to have good secondary guys anymore in this passing league. So they're I guess the running backs of the defense. And the Lions and Houston and Philadelphia, I mean, even though they just made these signings, when it comes to that position, they just don't value it. Yeah, I guess they're waiting for the right moment to draft, sign that ringer. I have no idea.
Now, Brandon, you're a Dolphins fan, correct?
Yes, that's correct.
Shocking. No, just kidding. Now, your team has been in the center of a lot of offseason moves, right? Like a lot of buzz. How are you feeling about this new Dolphins team?
I think they're going to be very good. I think they're going to be competing with Buffalo for the AFC championship, the AFC East championship. Excuse me. I like the Tyreek Hill trade. And in additions on the offensive line, because now there's no more excuses for Tua. He hasn't performed up to par as a 5th overall pick, but now you gave him the offensive line, you gave him the weapons on offense. Now it's time for him to play up to his ability and reach his ceiling and break out as a quarterback. And once he does that, that team it's going to take off, and they should compete with Buffalo. I still have Buffalo as the best team in the AFC East, but the Dolphins should be in the playoffs. If they don't make the playoffs, it'll be a huge disappointment, and I think it'll be because of Tua, because defense has been solid the past 2-3 seasons, and they just need to be better on offense, and that starts with a quarterback. So I'm intrigued by what Dolphins can do next season. I think they'll be a playoff team.
And that's exactly why you should be following Brandon at B Jackson 83.
B Jack 83.
Oh, we need to get you up there, man. Make sure they can see that. We've changed our format a little bit. Hey, if you guys haven't checked out any of his content, make sure you do. And I wanted to mention, because you got just 1 second in there, but the Rider Dynasty
podcast.
Yeah. Hey, I got to check that out last night, man, and it was like perfect timing with the IDP incentive draft coming up. So I'm going to apply some of that thinking and try not to screw this redraft up at the moment. We actually started a couple of hours ago at the IDP incentive, but last I looked, the guy on picking first is
still picking.
Yeah, he's eating a cheeseburger or something. So.
I'll give you the update. That pick is still waiting to be made.
There it is. All right.
Still waiting. I mean, of course, I can't say anything till Gary mentioned it. I forgot the draft even started.
What? Yeah. New to the league, and we started early.
It make it so bad. I'm on deck. And, that's why I get so frustrated with these slow drafts. These people, they take their time, man. They'll use up the whole clock, the whole 12 hours. Just to pick.
But what I'm going to do, Brendan, is I'm going to trade into that with like 2 minutes left, and then I'm going to wait 12 hours.
Right.
Oh, goodness, brutal.
Extend that out for you.
I was hoping
I'm mad at you, Gary, because it was my first year joining this league. I'm kind of new to Dynasty, and I didn't really know how this league works. I kept Kareem Hunt as one of my keepers. But I seen there was so much running back depth out there. I'm like, wow, this was a mistake. I made a big mistake, man. I should have kept like a third wide receiver or something, man.
You can only keep 2 wide receivers, but I don't know what you want from me. You're in the same league. I'm not giving you everything. No, I'm kidding, man. It's interesting. I wish that I wouldn't have kept Aaron Rodgers actually after seeing how the poll. There's a lot of guys that I could have probably used a 2nd or 3rd round on. I imagine the QBs are going to slip a little bit in this because a lot of guys did keep them. The people do know that they can afford to let them slip and pick up some of these more solid wide receivers and running backs. That's my intentions. That's why I tried to get a hold. I don't have a 3rd, but I managed to kind of turn that 3rd into another 1st round pick. I got back-to-back picks, 12 and 13. So I'm hoping to have that offense done and solidified here by the time we get out of I got 2-4 too. So that's 3 top 20 picks. I'm hoping to have that offense kind of locked down when I come back in to draft that 4th round.
Spoken like a true IDP man.
Right.
What are you even talking about? I am new to this league also, Brandon. I know nothing what's going on. I don't know how to strategize this league. There are so many odd rules. It makes it interesting, which is why I joined it.
Right.
But, man, I'm just happy that my receivers are CD and Jerry. I was able to keep both of those. So, a little bit
we
of
only
GD,
got what?
A little bit
8?
of CD.
We got 8 offensive starters, but we have 12 IDP starters. So if that's not IDP incentive enough, I don't know what is.
Yeah, you definitely got to be smart with your roster decisions, especially with the restrictions. Was I believe on running backs, you're going to have 4? I think 2. You can only have 2 running backs.
Well, right now that setting is set there for this draft, so it's supposed to keep you from going over the 2 limit. Last year, it did allow a couple people that had pre-selected and it fell on a certain player. They just usually correct that at the time somebody catches it, but hopefully it won't happen at all. But by the end of the season, you're restricted on an offense. You're allowed to have up to 2 quarterbacks. It's a 16-team league, though. So you're allowed to have up to 2 quarterbacks. You'll be able to have by the start of the season 4 running backs, and then 3 tight ends, and pretty much all the wide receivers you want all the way through. But there's an abundance. I mean, with everybody only having 4 offensive keepers and then 5 IDP keepers, that leaves another interesting part of the draft. Just like we're coming into the 10th round or something. I don't know. But I guess you can't really look at it that way, considering the first round or top talent that's on there. But I like it. I wanted to make this thing serviceable and interesting, and hadn't done a keeper league in a long time. So I'm treating it more like a redraft, though. So
well, the important thing to remember, and the important thing that you out there listening, what you can take from this is always make sure you are reading your rules, you're reading your settings, that you know what is going on in your league. Because if you don't, you're going to lose.
Yep.
Because somebody else is studying the nuances. They know exactly what to do because they've been planning ahead and they know those rules inside and out.
Yep.
So
it's a
read up
advantage.
And prepare.
Yep. And the nice thing, hey, if you guys are doing this, my best suggestion is to always have a shallow bench. If you have a shallow bench, no matter what size this league is, then you're always going to have activity on the waiver wire, and everybody's going to want to be involved a little bit more because they can do things. I think that's one thing I really try. We have 16 teams with a max of 32 on the roster, I believe. 32, 34 at the max. So for you to compete, especially on the IDP side of the ball, there's actually a lot there, and you can go and you can get it and be active and actually survive a hit. When you have those deep benches, I've seen benches 50, 55 people on it. Now I'm like, you're kidding me. I mean, what was the last trade?
Those are my leagues.
Yeah. Hey, we're a 10-year dynasty. Oh, yeah. What was the last trade made? I don't know. About 4 years ago. How about the last waiver wire claim? I don't know. I think we had one last year. Right? Right.
No, it even gets even better. The deeper the league, the better, because you have to know all the scrubs, which is why you should tune into the Ride or Dynasty podcast.
Yeah, and definitely check out the Ride Dynasty podcast. I can't tell you how good of a job and how excited I am to have you. Just working with you, JJ, has just been such a pleasure.
Thank you. Those words actually do mean a lot to me. I was glad to have Dave from Dynasty Dorks on last night. So,
which is another Gridiron Ratings member, basically. So, it's
getting the
exciting
whole
stuff.
Family together. Well, gentlemen, it is time for tags to let everyone know where they can find you and any final thoughts. Gary, why don't you go ahead?
As you can see down there, it's at the IDP Tipster. That's what you can find me on Twitter. Hit me up in chat if you got. I'd be more than happy to answer any questions you might have about anything, especially this time of year. It's interesting, it's engaging, and I like doing it. So that's it.
One of the kindest and most prompt responders on Twitter. Gary is the best for IDP. Brandon, go ahead.
Appreciate
Where can we find you?
Yes, you can find me at bjack83 on Twitter. I'm working with Gary this year on my IDP writer. I'm working on the Key and Diagnose series, as JJ stated earlier. It's mostly about second-year players. I'm examining, their rookie season and projecting what's going to happen in the second year. So I'm very excited about this season and working with Gary. And we're looking to help people win IDP championships. So I'm trying to get my follower count up. It's kind of low, but me and Gary are going to be out here grinding and putting out information, helping folks out. So hopefully I'll gain a few more followers.
Not to drag this out, but I actually looked the other day, and the list of people that we've wrote about this year between me and you about IDP, and then the list of guys that we've covered in a month and a half, couple months, something like that. We've actually covered a huge amount of people and players information, especially Probably don't even have them all listed because we're always mentioning other guys as we go when we bring this stuff up. It's been a really entertaining year to see everything just kind of click. And Brandon, you've been a big part of that. You guys got to check it out. I think he's going to have another article published for us tomorrow. Ogba, possibly? No. What's his?
Odafe Owe.
Baltimore Ravens. Right, you guys have to check that out.
Out of Penn State. Love him. Love him.
Yeah.
Well, ladies and gentlemen, you can find me at JJ Wenner on Twitter. Thank you, Gary, as always, for everything. Thank you to Brandon. You bring such energy to this crew. Your knowledge is great. I love what you're teaching us about second-year players, especially because most rookie IDPs don't perform at the level we want, and a lot of people give up on them. But you're telling us who to hang on to, and I appreciate that. Yeah. And an extra thank you to everybody out there for tuning in. Thank you. Thank you for giving us the time. Thank you for giving us a watch or a listen wherever you're tuning in. We appreciate it. Make sure you're tuning in to Getting Defensive every week for your off-season IDP content. Generally go up on Tuesdays and Thursdays. Rider Dynasty is going on Wednesdays. And check out Gridiron Ratings, our website, for everything that you could need for your fantasy teams. And remember, your path to the title starts with Gridiron Ratings. Have a great night.